I have a cool Floyd Rose artifact for you today. This is a Burny Fernandes LG-135NS. NS stands for Neil Schon of the band Journey. It's basically a clone of his 1977-78 Norland era Les Paul Pro, which he played extensively with Journey around 1980-1981. And it had one of the first ever Floyd Roses on it. It had a USA FRT-1. This is the Japanese FRT-1. And this guitar is interesting because technically it's the very first Les Paul type of guitar that had a production guitar that had a production Floyd Rose on it. So when Floyd Rose started in '79 with this trim, his was different than this one. His was handmade, built in his garage in Seattle, and he made like less than 50 of these. And he didn't really have any production guitars or lines they put on him himself. People would send him the guitars and he'd retrofit them. I guess that's not the right word, but he would just use his templates to install them. And there wasn't, he didn't have any dealings with any major guitar factories at that time, even though he would send requests from Fender, Gibson, and many others, and they all turned him down. Well, Fernandes said, hey, we like this trim, let's make a deal. And if you look at the 1982 Fernandes catalog, you see a bunch of guitars with the Floyd Rose FRT-1. And those guitars are actually, this was about late 1981, early 1982. And this guitar, it's very difficult to find these complete because people, when the fine-tuning models came later, they would take them off and replace them. And it's really cool because it has a kind of like a hand-milled type of nut, a really early nut. Now, the Japanese FRT-1s, specs are very close. There's some specific differences. I'm not going to get into the crazy details on that. Go to vintagefloydrose.com. There's more. I'm kind of mainly talking about the guitar. But one issue with the Japanese ones is that these base plates weren't hardened, whereas the USA ones were, and the base plates themselves were higher quality for the USA versions. The problem I see the most is the treble side post and basically the knife edge on the treble side really wears out. And these things don't hold tune well anymore because the knife edges just get dulled out really quick. And don't even try to float them because it just will not stay in tune. You got to block them so it's dive bomb only. So that's a little interesting fact about these ones. Later on, they fixed that with the FRT-3 and later on because those base plates were hard and those were a little better. But it's still a little interesting history behind it. Now, this is a copy of Neil Schon's 1977-78 Les Paul Pro. I'm not sure of the exact specs of that one. I've never played one. But the guitar itself is pretty good quality besides the Floyd not staying in tune. It's a very primitive way they did the route. In Floyd Rose, I think these luthiers in Japan were perhaps the first ever to try to do this, right, besides Floyd Rose. It's kind of interesting. The neck is not as chunky as a regular Floyd Rose neck. It's a little thinner, but not too thin. And I believe that's how the Norland era Les Paul Pros were. If somebody has played one of those, comment below. Got some hairline cracks on here. Doesn't look like it's broke. A little rusted out. Got some corrosion a little everywhere. Lots of dings and scratches. The electronics are original and they do work. On Neil Schon's, again, they cloned it. Neil put humbucker here and then hit the P90 right there. And this one's missing an original locking screw right here. This one was replaced. The arm bar is made out of steel. Overall, frets are in pretty decent condition. The original, this is a rosewood fretboard. However, the Les Paul Pro that Neil Schon had an ebony fretboard. Typical Les Paul characteristics otherwise. The locking nut is interesting, like I said, somewhat handmade. The high-ing, there's a burr in the high E string, and if you clamp it down, it will break. So I just got to loosen it up right now. So that's a little cool miniature history of these. I believe that they took, there's a model they had called the RG, I think it was the 50 or 55. I think they took that model and this took whatever templates they had and installed the Floyd on it. But it's these posts are specific to this bridge right here, and the USA ones were a little different, but the Japanese ones usually have these Phillips head screws on it, but not all the time. And overall, it plays well. Here's a little trick. The action is just a little bit, it's actually not bad. You could get it lower. It's also missing right on the top there, but everything works. One of my friends has one of these as well. What they did, it's hard to lower, as you can see, because the pickup ring is a little too high. So if you replace that, you can bring the bridge a little lower, and will also lower the action. But the guitar is structurally sound, and it plays well. Don't even try to tune this up, because it's a nightmare. You got to block it or just replace it playing live. If you watch my previous video, even if this was in good condition and knife edges are perfect, these early non-fine tuners, the problem with them and why they ceased to exist in the 80s, or they did exist but no one really used them because the fine tuner models were there, was that, let's say this is perfectly in tune. If you clamp these two strings, they will go slightly sharp, slightly flat, which kind of was a nightmare. And so you had to like predict where it was going to go. So if you know once you clamped it down and it'd go sharp, you'd have to tune it a little flat and pray it goes in tune once it's clamped. However, because once you do have it clamped and good to go, and you had one that had nice knife edges, not like this one, and let's say it's blocked, it will stay in tune indefinitely because there's nothing to knock it out of tune. One thing with these old non-fine tuners is there's less moving parts. The early fine tuning Floyds, the fine tuners themselves can knock it out of tune because there were more moving parts, especially when you did a deep dive bomb. The saddles would move up and down, and you come back, it could bring it out of tune in itself. Where these non-fine tuner models, see how there's no movement. If you have a really stable guitar, and you know what you're doing with these, and it's clamped and it's in tune, it will stay in tune indefinitely. Just not this model, not the way that it's set up floating right now, because the knife edges are completely dull. Anyway, check out the photos I got below. Nice little cool piece of history. And visit vintagefloydrose.com for more information. And I got some more Floyd Rose artifacts and videos coming up soon.